That state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color. So that's exactly what they're going to do this time.
Donald Trump is now directly saying into a camera, into a microphone, that in order for Republicans to retain power, they have to cheat. My name is Brittany Page, and I am the guest host for today. I host the Page Perspective on YouTube. If you have enjoyed my guest hosting run for today, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel over there. I also know that Jesse would love that. He's currently at jury duty. That's why he's not here today. He's upholding his civic duty. I don't know whether he will officially serve on a jury today. I'm waiting to hear the news. If I hear before I'm done guest hosting, I will reveal it in one of the videos, okay? So I'm checking my phone, seeing if there's any updates from Jesse, and I will keep you all updated if I get one. Now, this story, there's a few ways to frame it. I think the most important takeaway is that we have yet another example of how unscrupulous Republicans are when they have power, when they wield that power, and when they want to retain that power. And they're ready to cheat in order to retain that power because they know that their policies are not popular and they can't win based on their policies alone. We have the example they just passed that recent tax and spending bill, the Republican tax and spending bill. I don't like to call it the BBB because the full phrase, because I don't like using Trump's language about his bill, given how harmful the bill is. So those consequences of that bill, though, people getting kicked off of Medicaid, having their food assistance stripped from them, those negative consequences of that Republican legislation, those are not set to kick in until after the midterms. And that's by design because Republicans, again, know that their policies are unpopular. So they have to redraw districts in the middle of a decade, which is atypical, we'll get to that in a moment, in order to retain power. Now, in order to control the House, whatever party that controls the House needs 218 seats. Right now, the makeup is 220 Republicans and 215 Democrats. The big question here is, this has been the makeup of the House. Republicans have held the majority. In order to hold the majority, shouldn't they appeal to voters in order to gain that vote? Apparently not. Apparently they want to choose their voters. And that's where redistricting comes in. So we now have Donald Trump admitting that he plans to gerrymander his way to retain power. And we have an important response that we're going to play from Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, who's fantastic. But first, why is this not typical? So redistricting typically happens after a census every 10 years. That's when that would normally happen. This is clearly not the case right now, clearly not the case in Texas. The term gerrymandering, you may hear both redistricting and gerrymandering. Redistricting is that normal process of redrawing the lines based on the census every 10 years. Gerrymandering is redrawing those lines to give a political advantage to a particular political party. And that's what Donald Trump is directly saying into a camera, into a microphone. Texas right now is in an emergency and they are beginning a special session next week. So they are using this as an opportunity to cheat. And I want to read briefly from the Texas Observer on this. Quote, "The Republican-controlled Texas legislature is poised to consider a new set of congressional maps during a special session that kicks off next week. With their party locked out of power in Austin, Democrats from the state's congressional delegation said they expect the new districts to continue Texas's history of violating the Federal Voting Rights Act by diluting the votes of racial minorities. Trump's political operatives have been floating the prospect of drawing new congressional district lines that would shift GOP voters from safely red districts into neighboring blue ones in a bid to flip the seats and help Republicans hold their narrow House majority. Governor Greg Abbott ended weeks of uncertainty by putting redistricting on the agenda for the upcoming special session, which begins Monday. And now there's this divide happening where Trump lackeys are running to the TV to say, listen, this is typical. Democrats do this too. This is just what happens. But I already told you, it's not typical. We know it's not typical. It's also not typical to have the president of the United States directly say that these are his plans, that he wants to gain so many seats in order to retain his power. But that's exactly what he did on the tarmac.
President, at the event,
which states besides Texas would you like double canvass and gerrymander?
Say it again?
Which states besides Texas would you like Republicans to redraw the congressional?
Well, there's about 4 of them. I'll let you figure that one out, but we have about 4 of them. In 3 cases, it's 1, and in 1 case, it's 2 or 3. And Texas would be 5.
Are you concerned California will turn around and do the same thing, Republicans?
You know, they're so corrupt in California, you never know what's going to happen. But we've done pretty well in the courts in California, as you see. We're batting about 1,000, ultimately. We start off a little slow, and then we get a lot of hits.
So there are 4 states, not just Texas, where he wants to do this. That's important to note. And you may have heard that he was asked, are you worried that California is going to do the same thing? Because Gavin Newsom responded to this, and he said, if you want to play that game, we'll play this game. So he was asked, Donald Trump was asked, are you worried that California could play the same game? And he says he wouldn't be surprised they're so corrupt, which implicit in that would be the thing that Donald Trump is doing is corrupt, but we can't expect him to logically put things together or recognize when he himself is being inconsistent and illogical, right? That would be too much to expect. So someone watching this might say, listen, this was a one-off. He said this, he probably didn't mean it like that. And to that I say, okay, hear him again, right next to Caroline Leavitt, double down.
On Texas, how many more seats do you want the Republicans to draw?
5.
And then what if California, New York, Illinois, and other states?
Yeah, well, that's okay too, but 5. I think we get 5. And there could be some other states. We're going to get another 3 or 4 or 5 in addition. Texas would be the biggest one, and that'll be 5. No, just a very simple redrawing. We pick up 5 seats. But we have a couple of other states where we'll pick up seats also.
Again, he says, other states, not just Texas. A bigger plan. And I hope as you're watching this, you know, we're never surprised by the depths of depravity from this administration. But I hope that you're watching this and thinking, this is serious. Serious enough to share with someone so that they are informed and know what's going on here, because it's really, really important. Now, as I said, Congresswoman from Texas, Representative from Texas, Jasmine Crockett, responded to this, and I love her for many reasons, but she really keeps Donald Trump in this state of insecurity. And that's probably honestly what I appreciate the most. But she has an important message about one of the central parts of this that we should all be focusing on. So watch Jasmine Crockett here.
This question is for Congresswoman Crockett. You served in the legislature. Can you talk about what your prediction would be for this moment? What do you think is about to happen if they gerrymander? Can you talk on that? Thank you.
Yeah, so first of all, it hasn't quite been said clearly that Texas has always been found to be intentionally discriminatory. And so I want y'all to understand the makeup of my state. The state is a majority minority state. And what this legislature historically has done is what they plan to do again, is to dilute the voices of people of color in order to make sure that they can get to where they're trying to go. We saw this Department of Justice decided to put out a letter, and what did they do? We only have 4 seats that are represented by black folk, where the vast majority of the people that get to decide who they have represent them are black. They decided to attack 3 of the 4 seats that we have in the state. They decided to go after a Latina. They are specifically deciding to splinter the communities of common interest, as well as just blatantly say, we are going to dilute minority voices. So we know that the courts, ever since we've had a Voting Rights Act, have always found this state to be intentionally discriminatory. That is what they are going to do. So I need people of color to understand that the scheme of the Republicans has consistently been to make sure that they mute our voices so that they can go ahead and have an oversized say in this. So I fully anticipate that's exactly where they're going with this map. It's the only way to do it. We didn't understand how we got to the map that they gave us last time, because that state was grown by 95% people of color. They went out of their way to make sure that we got 0 new seats for people of color. So that's exactly what they're going to do this time.
I mean, that is why Donald Trump targets her all the time, because she is so much better than he could ever be. And she highlights the racial aspect of this, which is really, really important, that the history of gerrymandering when it comes to Republicans diluting the voting power of racial minorities, that is also the focus here. I mean, that's the goal. And it's why when I hear people speak about people that live in red states in a negative way, they'll say like they voted for this or they chose this. In a lot of cases, they were gerrymandered to hell, to where they can no longer control and no longer have the power to vote in a way that protects themselves. I mean, let alone a lot of people living in poverty and they can't just pick up and leave the state that they live in. So that always kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I don't know what you guys think. I'd love to hear it in the comments. But just as a bonus clip here, I guess we're going to play Donald Trump attacking AOC and Jasmine Crockett, saying that they have low IQs, which again is a racist attack. And again, I want to play this after you just heard Jasmine Crockett talk, because we know why Donald Trump's feathers are ruffled by AOC, by Jasmine Crockett. Yes, it's the racism, but it's also how they have the political power and ability that he will never have. Watch Donald Trump attack them here.
And, AOC, look, I think she's very nice, but she's very low IQ. And we really don't need low IQ. Between her and Crockett, we're going to give them both an IQ test to see who comes out best. Now, I took my test. I took a real test at Walter Reed Medical Center, and I aced it. I got every one of all those questions right. Now it's time for them to take a test. Anyway, have a good time.
Honestly, how often do we have to hear this Nepo baby who inherited his wealth talk about other people's IQs? It's maddening. And he keeps bragging about acing, as he says, an IQ test. It was not an IQ test. It's a cognitive assessment. This one right here, you've seen it before. The Montreal Cognitive Assessment, or the MOCA, okay? This is not an intelligence test. This assesses attention, executive functioning, language, memory. You can go download it yourself at geriatrictoolkit.missouri.edu, okay? So this is not an intelligence test, Donald. Although, listen, you wouldn't do well on that. I know you keep bragging about it. You think this is your intelligence test where you had to identify what these animals are here in the middle of the page, but that's not an IQ test. So this is a racist attack, another racist attack. That's all Trump has. Well, racism and cheating, I guess. What do you think? I'd love to hear it. Jesse would love to hear it. Leave a comment below. Feed that algorithm, please. You can also call and leave a fewer than 3-minute voicemail. Otherwise, you will be cut off after 3 minutes. 714-576-4054, or send an email to daily@dollemore.com. Please subscribe to my YouTube channel. I also talk about politics. I also interview people, interview politicians, interview authors, interview researchers. I talk about a lot of important issues, just like Jesse does here. So I would love to have you subscribe to my channel over there. Thank you for being here. And as Jesse would say, be genuine. Take care of one another.